Okay. This presentation is dedicated to Shane, one of our sports fans in the audience, and there are probably a lot of others out there as well. Thank you for having me here today. It's exciting. I feel like every speaker should have gotten up and said, and now for something completely different, because this has just been such a great eclectic mix of learning. So I'll try to add to that right now. What I want to talk about, my role at ESPN, just so you know where I fit in the company, is I head a research group that supports all of our ad sales efforts across all of our platforms. And so what my group does is we try to show advertisers why an investment with ESPN would be smart. And then we also try to show them how their investment worked well, or maybe didn't work as well as it should have, and how that can be better. So that's kind of our group in a nutshell. And what I want to talk to you today about is something that we call fondly Espn Xp, a research project that has a logo, which is very exciting. How many have a logo? We call it a surround strategy for cross-platform research. What I'll do is show you the case for why we feel that this is an incredibly important area for us. I'll show you our approach, some highlights of our learning, and we'll also talk about some of the methodology, including something that we have, which is an ad lab. So I'll talk to you about that as well. Okay. Probably helps to go like this. Here we go. A number of years ago, I'd say like late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of the marketing community thought the sky was going to fall and that television would get squeezed out of consumers' lives because of digital coming on board. And what we've seen is that's absolutely not true. In fact, if you look at folks' TV consumption, this is on a weekly basis, 42 hours a week. The people who are using more platforms in addition to TV are using just as much TV, if not more. So TV has not been displaced, but rather media use is just not a zero-sum game. For us, that's incredibly important, and we'll show you our kind of bar chart that goes with that. But for us, it all starts with the fan. Our mission is simply to serve sports fans anytime, anywhere. That's made us a multi-platform company, and it makes us, forge ahead in platforms that others may not be daring to go, but our sports fans get there because they need to know, they need sports live all the time. About 10 years ago, we started doing our own study of cross-platform behavior, and we saw that we had a lot of users, 67% were just TV users. We had some cross-platform users, and even people who accessed the brand without television. Fast forward to last fall, and we've seen that our increase in weekly visitors is up to 113 million. And our overall reach is up about 16%, but our multi-platform users have doubled since 2004. The TV use is actually up about 14% within there as well. So it's just an ever-increasing pie. It's important to us to understand all of that behavior. What we decided to do is establish our Espn Xp platform, and we had 3 goals. We wanted to move cross-platform research from being a special project to a standard practice. Right now, if you want to understand a real cross-platform behavior, you have to go about it in a very kind of putting it together on the fly way. There's no standard measurement. So you see folks like NBC, when they have the Olympics, they'll do a special project. We'll do it for a special sporting event. And that's just not good enough for the marketing industry. We also want to inform media plans with predictive measures and consumer insights. A brand might get to the end of a campaign and say, oh my gosh, that worked so great. Why? What did I do? What were the elements that were pushing on the right buttons? We also want to link to existing media currencies and the ad performance research. So we're not trying to displace Nielsen. What we're trying to do is get to holistic measures. This is how we think of it. We're trying to measure the users and the usage across for each individual platform, for TV, for radio, for digital. We also need to understand that cross-media audience and then the impact on ad performance. In that ad performance triangle, if you will, we have surrounded the problem with a lot of different methodologies and a lot of different companies, surveys, platform measures, using scientific method in our lab. We've done modeling, we've done observation, we've done simulation. Kind of exhausted. But we've learned a lot. I'm just going to give you a few highlights of the different kinds of things that we've been learning. Amazingly enough, multi-platform works. We know a little bit more about what individual media platforms contribute to the marketing mix, and also some messaging insights as well that I think will be interesting to tie back to our last couple of presentations. So first, this is just a couple of charts on 3 brands where you can see that this was in the World Cup, and as different fans were exposed to TV only or multiple platforms, with each platform, both their affinity and their purchase intent grew. We've proven this a lot of different ways, including this is one where we actually invented a brand that doesn't exist, a high five candy bar. We were trying to prove some things that brands that come to ESPN, you can't prove it with them because they're all bringing their own baggage, right? Everybody knows what a Miller Lite is. Everybody knows Toyota. So what we wanted to do is test some things with a non-existent brand. And part of that research was to test a TV-only campaign versus a campaign with multiple platforms. And yes, we did create advertising for this brand that went across all the platforms. And it was pretty good, even though researchers created it. We had an agency. I probably should have brought the ad. But anyway, again, even for this fictitious brand, multi-platform worked better than just TV alone. We've also done some modeling to look at this, and this is aggregating a whole bunch of brands across a football season and looking at what was driving each different metric throughout the purchase funnel. And so what we can see here is that TV was great at driving word of mouth, also great with memory effects. Depending on how you execute digital, it can work all the way across the purchase funnel. And the more personal media, the radio, mobile, magazines, those actually get deeper and get into recall and, importantly, consideration. Another way to look at that is this way. We kind of put on a schematic here the strength of different media on their own, just who's the most, the strongest at driving brand attributes and brand metrics. TV is the strongest. But if you start to look at synergies, we've actually seen where magazine connected with digital can equal the strength of TV. And we also see that if you put anything with TV, that's off the charts in terms of driving advertising and brand metrics. Another fun thing we like to do is combine data. So here's a chart that just shows across, again, this is back to World Cup, but showing the different platforms in our family and how much brand word of mouth they were driving. And they were arrayed this way, and we sort of said, I wonder why mobile's driving more than TV. Then we layered in the percentage of the consumption of those platforms out of home. And you go, okay, if you're out of home, you're probably with people, so you can talk, and that would create more word of mouth. Just an interesting little way to look at things. Messaging. We get a lot of questions from advertisers about their commercials and what works best in especially within our brand. So we've done a lot of work in this area. I'll show you a chart first that came from 42 different TV commercials that we measured. It was almost like doing dial testing, but it was on a computer. So people could say, this commercial is making me happy, I'm bored, I'm informed, throughout the commercial. And they also were watching content as well. So it was kind of trying to make it a little bit more of a natural viewing experience. But this is then we arrayed the different emotions with whether they felt that the brand was more appealing or whether there was recall. Now, the things that align with appealing make sense. You know, they were happy, they were entertained, they were amused. But the things that drove recall were that they were annoyed or they felt like it was pushy, which kind of went back to that other grid we just saw, right? Where, what was it? I'm sorry, I forgot the two words that were together. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes there's negative. I don't know how you combine those things in one commercial. But what we also found interesting is kind of in the center of the chart there, where you see very often used words that brands want to convey. They want to be wholesome or authentic. They want to be seen as relatable or innovative. And those really weren't driving anything that strongly in a TV commercial. And again, we think maybe other platforms can do that better. This is just an example of a 30-second spot and a tracer of the emotions being amused and being annoyed. And they're together. We said, how can you be both amused and annoyed? We started to look at splitting up the groups on known variables. And the thing that we found is that if we split them between casual fans and avid fans, that's when you saw it. The avid fan got the joke in the commercial, and they were amused. Casual fans didn't get it. So they were kind of just annoyed by the whole situation. We have to know your audience. And finally, we look a lot at features. So brands will sponsor things like our top 10 plays during SportsCenter or Come On Man during Monday Night Football. What does that do for you? What does that do for the brand? And what we found is a couple of sets of things that drive appeal and drive recall. First of all, if they're clever, entertaining, relatable, and likable, and also credible, trustworthy, and authentic. Both of those dimensions, those are really about ESPN as well. So if you fit with ESPN, it will be a better feature. A lot of our learning has come from our ad lab, which is down in Austin, Texas. We established this lab in 2009. Dr. Dwayne Varan runs it. He's from Perth, Australia, out of Murdoch University down there, and he does a lot of research into ad and media effectiveness. We love having the lab because it's a place we can isolate variables. We can do very strong experimental design and get into emotional measures, physiological measures, implicit measures. We're even getting into some facial coding. This is kind of a look at all of our tools. And I'll just give you 3 examples of things we've learned. Back on the creative front, advertisers ask, do I have to have sports-themed creative to be effective with ESPN? During World Cup, we took a number of the advertisers who had created special soccer-themed commercials, and we were able to test their equity spots versus those spots. We found that aided awareness and brand attitude indeed did better with the sports-themed creative, but not in all cases. So it always comes back to whether it's good creative. One twist we did was we put a different sport in the soccer programs. That's not good. Don't mix sports. If you're going to do sports-themed, keep it in the right sport. Football season, college football. Allstate does a number of things. If you've ever seen a game and you see the Allstate nets go up behind, and they have hands back there, they do that. They also have a scholarship program that gets mentioned during games, as well as the Good Hands play. They wanted to understand what those are doing for their brand and how they're working in combination with their commercials. I can't give you results because they're proprietary, but that's the kind of thing that we can do in the ad lab. And finally, how effective are mobile, is there a Viking fan out there? Me too. How effective are mobile banner ads, little tiny banner ads in mobile versus what you might see on your computer screen? Are those as effective as each other? What we found out is that they are. They're exactly the same. Eyes resize. Your own different, the way that you're orienting yourself to that screen makes them both impactful. I think that's my last one, yeah. That's it. Any questions?